Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Trustcast Show. And I'm really happy to have with us Steve Heninger. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Steve was prosecuting jury trials for the Army before he'd even set foot in law school. And 5 decades later, he's a founding partner of Heninger Garrison Davis, a national plaintiffs law firm that's recovered over $3 billion. And so I have an opening question here. I usually write this out. So you've tried over 100 military court martials as the brigade legal officer at Fort Benning, and you weren't even a lawyer yet. How does that work?
Well, fortunately for me, I was drafted during Vietnam when college deferments were stopped. I was a sophomore at the University of Illinois. And after going through basic training, I asked if there was any way to go back to school, and they said yes, if you'll go through an accelerated officer training and promised to give us 2 years of active duty. So I did. And I was on orders for Vietnam as a lieutenant. And Nixon pulled us out of Vietnam 13 days before I was supposed to go. So guess what my lucky number is? And when I went to Fort Benning, they ran out of lawyers in my brigade, and the brigade commander at an officer's call asked if anybody was interested, and I applied and got the job. At that time, special courts martial could be tried by a non-lawyer prosecutor, but had to be defended by a lawyer for the defense. But a general court martial had to have lawyers on both sides. And so that's how I fell into trying courts martial.
That's interesting. I did not know, even as a veteran, I did not know existed like that. I guess I stayed out of trouble when I was in the military for the most part. At least I never got caught. So you grew up in Salem, Illinois, same tiny town that produced William Jennings Bryan, which is so. Did that connection to one of America's most famous orators mean anything to you as a kid?
Oh yeah, because in elementary and high school, his name was used constantly. The Cross of Gold speech and statue of him. I think it was the only statue in town was of Bryan. The name of the daily paper was the Salem Times Commoner because he was called the Great Commoner. So yeah, it had an influence.
So you're a varsity sprinter at University of Illinois, student body president at the high school, and a three-sport athlete. How did competing shape the way you prepare for trial?
Well, doesn't competing apply it to every aspect of life? Even if you're pursuing love, you're competing. So yeah, it had an influence on me. Taught me some good lessons about when hanging your head has to be a temporary situation. And in trials are so dynamic, especially if they're very long. They're like roller coasters. You're up on Tuesday and really down on a Wednesday afternoon. We just had some bad hits. Back up on Thursday. So you're in competition, and if you're not able to withstand the tides, it's a problem.
So after 2 years in the Army, what made you choose to go the way of plaintiffs versus prosecution?
Well, I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer, and I'd been accepted at Baylor, and I was really high on going to Baylor at that time because Leon Jaworski was a graduate, and we'd gone through the Nixon Watergate situation, but I couldn't afford it. I was accepted at Cumberland here in Birmingham, and I'd never been to Birmingham, so I came over and saw the town. And my wife and I and our 18-month-old son moved here to start law school and take out a lot of loans. So it was very fortunate that I ended up here. I didn't have the urge to go back north. After almost 2 years at Fort Benning in Georgia, I liked the South, and that's why I decided to stay down here. In my first year, I had a tremendous torts professor, and I fell in love with that and decided I want to be a plaintiff's lawyer.
So walk me through, how did HGD come together in 2006?
Two law firms merged. My law firm was a litigation-centric firm for typical single event transactions, automobile, medical malpractice, products liability. The other firm with Lou Garrison was into mass torts like pharmaceuticals, where you have a lot of claimants for a drug that's causing problems. And we decided to try a new business model, see if we could use the litigation model to fund the very expensive, larger business model for mass torts. And that's what we did. And we've been very fortunate to have it work out.
Yeah, the mass tort is a huge financial commitment on the part of the firm that's actually trying that, and I don't think people realize it. So your firm has recovered over $3 billion for clients. Is there a single case that kind of changed the trajectory of your firm?
Well, back in 2012, I got a verdict in federal court in Montgomery against a bingo casino for $64 million. And to get that in federal court really was a great advertising tool, obviously. Because, you know,
Not to mention a
lot of firms on TV, their ads are that they, you know, it's personal to us and blah, 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 but they don't have the courtroom results to back it up. So that was a big boost to our firm.
And what was the linchpin part of that that made
charities? Bingo in Alabama is the only gambling that's licensed, so to speak, but it has to be sponsored by charities. So it has to be going to someone, and the people that were operating the bingo casino were stiffing the charities. And we had 21 charities, prostate cancer groups, veterans groups that had been stiffed. So we sued for fraud and got the exact amount we asked for to the penny in closing argument.
So when you have a case like that, where you have a group that's doing something that you successfully prosecute, but how do you recover those funds after you've, litigated?
Well, the bingo parlors down here in Alabama are very profitable.
Oh.
So there is no lack of a deep pocket.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that. So you've tried 21 cases with seven-figure verdicts. What separates a case that settles from one that you know has to go to jury?
Well, that's usually not a decision I make or my client. It's usually a defense decision where they're feeling bullish and the offer is either zero or right close to it. And so you don't have a choice. You're going to trial. It's a rare situation where you've got an offer of $2 million on the table to settle and you're demanding 10, so you go to court. That happens, and you've got to prove that you are willing to stick to your guns. When you say it's going to take X, it does, because after this case, I'm going to have other cases with those firms. And have I established credibility that he means what he says? And if we don't meet the boundaries that he set out, he's going to try it. He may lose, he may win. But do we want to do it? So there are a lot more than 21 settlements in the seven-figure range, but I think it's pretty rare for a solo lawyer to have had to go to court and get those from a verdict individually. Not mass tort cases, but single event, one person. Zane versus IBM.
Yep. So Eric, your son, is now a partner at the firm, and I'm reading here he was just named Lawyer of the Year alongside you. That's got to be pretty exciting. What's it like practicing with your son?
Fantastic. I entered it with some trepidation when he told me he wanted to come with me, because I told him I've seen fathers ruin a lot more lawyers than help, because they expect more. It's like when you coach soccer or Little League baseball. If you're the coach of your son, after you leave the team and he's got to ride home with you, it's always, you played a good game, but remember when, blah, blah, blah. And I was concerned that it might develop into the same thing because I'm pretty obsessive, compulsive. But it's worked out really well. We have tried, I think, 19 or 20 jury trials together. And that's a special feeling, to be able to be there with your son or daughter in court in front of a judge and 12 jurors. There's something special there.
Yeah,
And he's good. He's good.
Well, he's got to be if it was lawyer of the year. So you said trials lawyers are in the lighting and heating business. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, the evidence is evidence, but how evidence is used makes all the difference in the world. This football in my hands is different than this football in Jalen Hurts' hands. It's the same football. So we need illumination. How do you illuminate and put light on evidence so the jury can see it from different angles? And when light doesn't work, if it's not provocative enough, you can apply heat, which is emotion. Is it an emotion of disgust at conduct by the defendant, or an emotion of empathy for the pain and struggles of the plaintiff? There's a whole menu of emotions, but I got that phrase in the writings I used from President Reagan, where he said, when the light isn't sufficient, you got to turn up the heat. So I thought that pretty much says it in trial work as well as in politics.
So give me an example of how you might do that in a case, or how you did do it in a specific case.
Well, in the bingo casino case, my opening statement was, I just stood up and I looked at the jury and I said, cheaters never win. That's what I've been told by my coaches, by my parents, by my teachers. I bet y'all have told your children the same thing. Cheaters never win, hoping to discourage cheating. But that's not true. The more I live life and walk the streets, cheaters always win. They wouldn't cheat if they didn't win. They cheat because they are seldom caught. They only lose when they're caught. But cheaters win, or they wouldn't take the shortcuts they do. They're profitable. The scams we have going on in the computer technology and telephones of elderly people, cheaters win, even though people know scams are out there. So that's a situation where I'm trying to illuminate and raise the temperature at the same time by a single phrase and prove that it is false, unless you, the jury, by gosh, this cheater's not getting away with it. And we're going to start a new cheaters never win. No, cheaters always win until they get caught, and we caught you, and you're going to pay.
So how do you come up with an idea like that? So because it's you have to have a different kind of thought process to think through. You're thinking through something more than the law. It's not, you're not talking about the law. You're talking about people and emotionally touching them. Is there some formula, or how do you ruminate on a topic to come up with, we need to approach it this way?
Well, there's no recipe, but there is a formula, because I'm human. You and I have the same man suit, skin, blood. We're different. You got hair, I don't. But my ideas come from, I am a prolific reader. I read a lot. I write a lot because I'm wanting to stay in touch with humanity. I just published a blog yesterday. I've got a blog called Trialnasium, which is a combination of trial work and gymnasium. It spun off the old Greek gymnasium. It started as a place to learn battle techniques and then developed into also studying politics and philosophy. So Trialnasium is meant to address those things. Yesterday's article was started in my mind by something I saw Dolly Parton say in a recent documentary where she says, look, my fans don't come to see me being me. My fans come to see me being them. And so my message is to lawyers and myself when I look in the mirror, I've got to be them. Don't expect the jury to come and be me. And I'm not just here to entertain you. There will be some entertainment in every trial. But the lawyer who can be the jury, realize the same teachings, moral values, and fundamental beliefs, and not keep the spotlight on me, keep the spotlight on us. What is our community like? What were we taught to do as we grow up? And if we keep that in focus and not be egotistical, boy, that's a battle for trial lawyers, I assure you, myself included, after 50 years of doing this business. But I have to be constantly disciplined to this case, this evidence is for the jury. They're going to make the decision, not me. And it's not my explanations that carry the day. It's my illuminations and turning up the heat.
So you said that a great storyteller is not an interesting person, but rather an interested person.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that concept?
I think all of us want to be interesting. I'd love to think that my wife, after 55 years, still finds me interesting. But I assure you, I go out of my way to make sure she knows I am interested in her. And by making her the interesting target, I think it helps me. Storytellers need to do that in court, or whether you do it for a living as a writer. You need to be an interested person, interested in the common man and what values and emotions and beliefs do we share and where do we disconnect. So that's why I think when we're too egomaniacal and we are striving to be interesting, we're missing the mark.
So you've done these clinics at all kinds of universities, Harvard, Stanford, Georgetown. What is the common mistake you see young lawyers make in front of a jury?
The most common mistake is frailty and fear. Fear of being judged because during these boot camps that we put on, they have to stand up. They're being videotaped in doing cross-examinations, opening statements, closing arguments. And you have to be vulnerable and willing to be out there and be judged, because you are being judged. The jury's judging me every time I stand up in a courtroom. I hope they judge me fairly according to what I give to them and how I conduct myself. But fear is the biggest problem, and it doesn't matter if you've been practicing 2 years or 50 years. We all have fear of public speaking. No matter how trained you are, there's still some fear. Entertainers have fear. You don't think Dolly Parton gets, or name your favorite comedian or singer? They get more than just butterflies before they go out on the stage. They've got fear, but they've learned to deal with it. Make fear a passenger in your car instead of be the driver. I'm the driver. Fear, I have to be aware it's here. I'm going to deal with it.
So you launched your blog called Trialnasium, inspired by you're talking about the Greek word gymnasium. What made you want to start teaching publicly after decades in the courtroom?
I love teaching. I've been teaching on the side probably since 10 years after I started practice, when people flattered me enough to say, would you come and be part of a faculty on something? I really love it. Teachers influenced my life. There are 5 or 6 that were just phenomenal. And I hope I can have a thumbprint just a little bit on people that go into a courtroom to represent faces I'll never see, names I'll never know, in California or Washington State or Wisconsin, because I had a little bit of impact on the way they do things during the teaching process.
So I generally do a little bit of a rapid fire sessions just for fun to break things up in the middle. So I'm gonna go at that. So first case you ever lost, you remember it?
I do.
Favorite courtroom in America?
Got one. Montgomery, the old Montgomery courthouse where Frank Johnson held court. It had carriage lanterns on each side of a very ornate bench. It kind of looked like the Resolute bench for the president. And it had mosaics, and the tiles were just expensive, and deep crimson velour curtains. That's the prettiest courtroom I've ever seen.
Not something like they make anymore.
No.
One trial lawyer, living or dead, you'd love to watch close.
Melvin Belli, dead.
So who was he?
He was a plaintiff's pirate who flew the pirate flag above his office whenever he was in trial. Because I think a lot of society sees plaintiff's lawyers as pirates. They're trying to plunder money from big corporations. Yeah. And he reveled in that image. I think that's a little tacky, but his skill in the courtroom was more than just that flag above his building. And he was very famous in the late 60s and 70s while I was going to law school.
Okay. Something you do in the morning or do the morning of every trial?
Put $13 worth of gas in my car. That's my lucky number.
Okay.
If one car is full, I drive my pickup truck and I put $13 in it.
Best advice Karen has ever given to you about your career?
I was asked to run for Congress back in the 90s, and my ego sent me home to tell her that I'd been asked to run. And she said, if you do, I'll divorce you. I'm not having our family run through the mill like I see politicians do. And
yeah,
you know you'll owe somebody and you won't get to be yourself. So you better turn it down. And I did. And it was the best advice she ever gave me.
Yeah. Favorite thing about being a grandfather of 5?
That I get to go home and leave them with their parents when the visit is over.
I'm there with you, Steve. but they're great while they're around. So yeah, we could have skipped over having kids. It just went straight for the grandkids.
Amen.
So your motto of your firm is essential leveling the playing field so one person can stand toe to toe with the largest corporations. Has there been a David and Goliath case that kind of embodies that?
Yeah, they happen all the time. I specialize in medical malpractice, and I tell my clients all the time, we start out in the locker room. We're not even dressed for the game, and the defendant, doctor, or hospital is on third base because there is sympathy for the doctor always. You would think just the opposite, but the start is that way. So it's really an uphill climb, notwithstanding that people probably read the news. Well, there was a medical malpractice verdict of X million dollars, and that sure is going on a lot. It's because there is a lot of malpractice. But what they don't know about are the many, many cases that are lost just because the jury is not going to put a scarlet letter on the forehead of this doctor. Not going to do it. And I understand that there's some logic that makes sense about that. But then again, there's accountability, and that's my job.
So how do you overcome that? I mean, what's the logic there behind, or the emotion behind overcoming that?
Well, you've got to create the common bond that, look, none of us are doctors like Dr. So-and-so, but we are all patients. Even Dr. Defendant is a patient of someone. And while things can go wrong, no one can guarantee anything in medicine or law. But one thing that has to be guaranteed is that the best efforts will be put forth that coincide with the best medicine that people have been taught. And it's in the cases where it's ignored or there's a hurry through something to get to something else. Those are the cases that result in the significant verdicts. But if it's just making a mistake, the jury's going to let the doctor off. If it was just a mistake, and I understand that, I do, but I've got to dig deeper and see if there's something behind the curtain that's not just a mistake, that this was the 10th mistake of the very same ilk.
So, discovery, what part does that play in your overall process?
Discovery is trial. Depositions are trial, because when you go to trial, you've got the locked-in testimony of the witness. If they try to fish tail and change things, it doesn't look good in front of the jury, and it makes it easier for you to speed up the examination. So depositions are just crucial for trial. And both sides of the legal profession know that, the defense, the insurance defense, as well as our side. And you have to prepare your client to get them ready to be honest, but don't be intimidated and trapped by some skillful question.
So you handle all kinds of different cases, from whistleblower type things to medical malpractice to large tort. What makes you decide at this point in your career, you probably don't have to do as much marketing as maybe some firms. What makes you decide to take a particular case versus another?
It's a gut reaction. The initial meeting with the client and trying to put myself in the seats of the jurors. Will they like and understand this particular client? Does the story have a compelling journey? What obstacles have been forced into their lives? I mean, a common formula I like to use in trials is you start out with the normal, which is you and I are going to drive home at the end of the day. That's normal. But then what if an accident happens and I get both of my legs crushed? Now I have to deal with a new normal. And the third aspect is, how is the plaintiff or the victim dealing with that new normal? Do they need some rope to help them out of this hole that they involuntarily were thrust into? I like to say that defendants oftentimes give a plaintiff a new job. It's a job they didn't apply for. I have a great job as a senior partner in a law firm, but if somebody hit me and I'm paralyzed tonight on the way home, I'm engaged in a whole new job, trying to survive in a life where I'm immobile and I can't do the things. And I'm forced into a new job, a new mentality. And how do any of us deal with that when it's forced upon us? So that's really that's the traditional thread that goes through just about every lawsuit. Normal. What was normal? What's the new normal? And so what are we going to do with it?
So you have offices now in Atlanta, Birmingham, and New York. How do you manage that kind of, and how many associates you have?
We've got 20 in the firm, but we've stopped the New York office. That was primarily for mass torts because a lot of things were in New Jersey, and they have moved all around the country. There's some new laws that require in class actions. The venues have changed, so we no longer have the office in New York.
Okay.
Satellite offices are a challenge. They are.
So you've been named a super lawyer, best lawyer in America, inducted into the Alabama Law Foundation's top 1%. Which recognition actually means the most to you?
Alabama Law Foundation. Because those people know me. If it's a group for the best lawyers of America, they're looking at me on paper and checking out with others, what's his reputation. But the people that invite you to the Alabama Law Foundation know you, know your work, know your shadows, know what's gleaming. They know you. And so that's the most impactful for me.
So you've been married to Karen for over 50 years, 3 kids,
Next
55
Friday,
years.
5.
Well, congratulations. 5 grandkids.
7.
Everybody in Birmingham. How do you keep so
7 grandkids now.
Okay. Wow. 7. So is everybody still in Birmingham? Is that right?
Everybody's within 20 minutes of our house.
How do you manage that? Because I have kids and they're all over the country.
That's what I hate to hear people say, well, I get to see my grandson at Christmas. I haven't seen him since last Christmas, and I see mine every week. So I love it. I do like to be able to get away from them from time to time. I mean, I've got grandkids that are college bound, and my youngest just turned 1 3 weeks ago. So it's a great opportunity to have some impact in their lives. It's also, as you know, probably, that there's a tendency to want to get my son or my daughter, I have 2 sons and 1 daughter, and say, well, don't you think you may need to think about such and such with this child? And it's like, Dad, let me raise them, okay? So there's that temptation. My wife has it even more than I do. But it's a great blessing to all be within 20 minutes of each other.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I'm envious of that. So after 40 years of plus of plaintiff work, what still gets you fired up to walk into a courtroom?
The chance to stand up and speak for somebody who can't, where it's not just my voice, but part of my heart is something they've given to me, and we've connected. And so I'm just the sound wave. Some of it, most of it is probably me from my experience and training, but then a large part is me being them. Like Dolly Parton said, the jury wants to see me being them, not just me being me.
My dog just invaded my office.
Small dog.
That's a small dog.
What is it?
It's a Shih Tzu Maltese poodle, and she just doesn't want to leave. My wife opened the door, and she came in, and now I'm doesn't want to get out.
I've got a Havanese, which is probably the same size.
Yeah,
like that.
So
Small dogs need constant attention, don't they?
Yeah, she just really loves
beautiful.
the attention.
I've got a white.
That's you.
Golden doodle.
Oh yeah,
just like her, but much larger.
So, what's the one thing you tell a young lawyer who's, wants to be a great trial attorney, not just a good one, but a great trial attorney?
That you've got to go after it and indulge yourself in training by good lawyers and watching good lawyers, but also staying in touch with common humanity. Don't ever let yourself get elevated where you think you're superior just because of your knowledge. Like you had talked about discovery earlier, when I get involved in discovery, I find out horrible stuff about internal workings in corporations.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that's not admissible into evidence, and yet I know about it. So I think I've got some inside information that makes me special. But if I can't share it with the jury, it does no good. So somehow I've got to think about ways around the rules of law to bend them, never break them, to make an advancement, to keep humanity at the forefront, not just the black and white letters of the law. That people's lives are at issue. The plaintiff in this new involuntary job and the defendant, his or her job, their reputation, their self-identity is at issue. And I can't ever forget that. I need to remember that. And I tell my students that I teach at a law school here in town. That's what I tell them too. Don't ever forget your humanity. Stay in touch. Read stuff besides law. Read novels. Read anything, photo journals. Find out about what other people are thinking about.
So the one thing I'm taking out of this is you have a lot of passion still after all these years for what you're doing. So
I do.
So where do you see HGD headed in the next 5 years? What direction would you like to go in?
I would like it to be not much larger in the number of lawyers, much larger in the size or value of cases. Obviously, there's a profitability aspect to this. I'd like to see the volume of just strict numbers litigation going down, because volume can drown you and make you less sensitive to the people who really need you the most. That's where I hope we're headed. And we have an impact in that through choices that we make, but we can't control it. We got competition out in the street, on TV, everywhere.
So that's one of my final questions is, so what do you do? So you're obviously really well established. You have an immaculate reputation, and people know you around town and nationally. But do you still have to market yourself?
Yes, it's a never-ending problem, because relationships fade or end with death. I mean, a lot of people that sent me a lot of business over the years have already gone to the great reward. So then there's the newer wave, and technology and social media and those things that drive me crazy have an enormous impact on the younger lawyers in my firm, how they go about marketing and seeing others. I don't like it. I like the person-to-person thing. I still like to talk on the telephone. My kids and grandkids want to text. They don't necessarily want to talk. So I have to realize that the world is changing, and I have to change a little bit with it. Not totally. I can't give up my identity, but I have to adapt. Darwin was right. There has to be some adaptation in the species. And that's tough. It's tough for me, and it's tough for them to hear me say, yeah, yes, but. You got to keep it personal and take people to lunch still and go have a drink. They're not necessarily into that. They're wanting to do the social media blast. But you know what, Zane, it works. And I'm kind of surprised, but the way social media does work, the more you put yourself out there, the more contacts you get.
Yeah.
Even
yeah.
if it's
But the flip side, having that personal relationship, that also works.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So I'm just curious on just a kind of a side note is, having your son in the business, how do you navigate when you see something one way and he sees something completely different way?
Well, fortunately, we're very good about listening to each other. I respect him. He has strengths that I have, and I have some strengths that he doesn't have. So we listen to each other. Over the past several years, I think there's been more deference on his part towards me, that within the last 5 to 7 years, he has now become the head of our litigation department. I now have more deference to him, that if we're 50-50, tie goes to him. And I think that we need to have that understanding. Every case can't be a new discussion. There has to be a context and a past and where we're planning on going in the future that governs it. And fortunately, we must have done something right with him, because he's really a good man, and he listens as well as is unreluctant to speak.
So where can people find you if they have an issue? So if someone does want to find you, what would be the kind of cases that you would take?
Automobile, medical malpractice, product liability, business disputes. I really enjoy business litigation for like breach of contract and fraud, things of that nature. And of course, I don't do personally the mass torts, but I have really good lawyers in my firm that do. We do those. If you see something on TV about Zantac or Xarelto, chances are we're in that as well, to a large extent.
So where would people get in touch with you if they thought, oh, I like the sound of this, I want to talk to him?
Well, the website is the best way. It's Heninger Garrison Davis, LLC, for the website. And my personal email is steve@hgdlawfirm.com, HGD being Heninger Garrison Davis. So it's steve@hgdlawfirm.com.
Well, Steve, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.